My life is a mess because part of the time I work from home, part of the time I work from the office.
Yeah.
Because I'm transporting things back and forth all the time. Hey, welcome back to another exciting episode of Spellstorm Miniatures. My name is Jeremiah.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Chad.
And we have an exciting episode to talk about today. We actually have two bits of news that we're going to go over. One of them represents one of the most exciting things about the game that we love. And the other is on the complete opposite end of that spectrum. So be ready for some really high highs and some really low lows. That's the name of the game for this episode, though. Hey, let's why don't we talk about games we've played first? Let's do that, and then we'll get into our main topics. Playing the games lately?
It's going to be a roller coaster of a time. A little bit like my game. I actually got a game in. Like, it's exciting. Well, I mean, again, ups and downs. I was like excited to play, and then a little spoiler: by the end of it, I was a little downtrodden and saddened again. But hey, so it was signed up for the Cossack Tide of Skulls, and I got matched up with a fabulous player who I later learned was Canadian, so explains why he was so nice. So yeah. Basically, he was running Legion. This would be the second time I've played Legion in my illustrious 4-year career of playing, and the first time playing a full 75-point game in about a year or so. So I knew it was going to be a little bit rough, knock some ring rust off. I was probably going to lose. Already consoled to that fact, but I'll get into that later. He ended up dropping Callus 2 with 2 units of Chosen, 2 Hellmouths, 2 Scythians, Golab, Amok, and Blight Archon with Mechano Shredder. And there's 2 Spell Martyrs, I think they're called, the little 1-point blow up and channel spell. So yeah. I think that was the list. And so I decided to drop my Grim 1 list. Double War Wagon, Sea King, some Lookouts, Scouts, and Stone, Boomy 2. And so the recent ad of the Gunnery Sergeant. 3 points to give that +2 on the War Wagons or maybe the Sea King spit or something. It's just good. So I was like, all right, I can take this. It was the scenario that there's 2 circle zones, 1 on each side, and then left and right, and then 2 flags, 2 objectives. So we both rolled. He got a 5 to roll. I got a 6, so I chose to go first because I think going second in that matchup, that Legion is just going to absolutely bully the board, right? Like the threat ranges, everything else ability. So I kind of had to go first, and just dawdled up, and then he pulled a nice trick where Callus has the is it Battle Lust or something that gives the extra die on damage rolls, and so he threw that on his tentacles, and 2 of his tentacles chipped away 15 damage on my War Wagon right out the gate. I was just like, I didn't expect that. Arm 19 versus what do they POW 13, 14, something like that. So
I don't remember. I feel like they're either 10 or 12 on just the tentacles.
Yeah, I mean they just seemed kind of weak, but with a charge and that running 4 dice, I mean it was hot, right? He got some good dice rolls and crushed in a little bit, right? And so
if they're POW 12 charging,
yeah, they're PS10. The tentacles.
That's about average. I mean, average on 4 dice is 14, so that's only slightly over average if you rolled.
Well, yeah, dice off 9
damage.
Yeah,
it's a little over. It's a little over average.
Exactly. So either way, I was like, okay, it's fine. So then he kind of moved up really cautiously, put Callus more to one side and hid him behind a building. And so my next turn, I just kind of I pushed in. I figured I kind of got to try to go in, right? His chosen were well spread out. Like he was playing great. His positioning was good compared to my incredibly horrible unpacking of my list. And so the other, my one war wagon kind of went in, tried to do some damage. That was already a little bit beat up. I figured it was going to die anyway. Just keep it busy over there in the zone. I pushed up with the Sea King to kill a Hellmouth, basically, because there's nothing else in range. So got that out of the way. Got Grim in there to feat so that I can try to protect the Sea King, which caught a lot of his army. Caught the main beast that I needed to. And then the other war wagon, I pushed a bit too far, I think. I didn't have to go as hard as I did, but I didn't really realize that Amok had Rise. Or Amok. I don't know. Legion player, correct me. So that caught me a bit off guard because I knocked down 3 of his chosen with my War Wagon's Quake Gun and figured, okay, he's going to charge me with 2 of them? I can take 2 chosen charges, no problem, right?
Yeah.
Or at least I would think
Not
after
5.
the whole deal. Yeah. And so he was in there and then pass it over. And yeah, pretty much what happens, Rise. And I'm like, uh-oh, that's going to be painful. Granted, Grim's feet slowing down the speed kind of helped on some things. But ultimately, for that War Wagon, it got toasted, right? He threw that same spell over, boosted their damage rolls, which works on the impact and the charge, and just chunked that War Wagon down. So that was kind of sad there. The other War Wagon died to like the other tentacles and chosen and everything else over there. So that guy went down. Then Sea King remained pretty safe because nothing else could really get it. Everything else was fine. So the end of that, we each score a point because he didn't contest my flag and I couldn't contest his zone. So the following turn, I try to, top of 3, I try to push in and I made some bad decisions. I was kind of rushed. We ended up having to break up the game just schedule-wise. There's just some home stuff going on. And so before the game, I got like a text about some work stuff about 15 or 20 minutes before the game. So I probably should have canceled it because my head wasn't quite there. But I didn't want to cancel on him and just get the game going. So again, his dice were pretty hot. So I was hoping for a good change of that too. So I went in. I activated my Axer first, which was a mistake. Just thinking, I'll just get some easy activations done. Charged his Blight Archon, Threshered into the Spell Martyr and his Blight. Did some damage, 7 damage, or a few damage. I don't think it was quite 7. It was like 6 or so damage. Enough he just took it. But what that prevented me from doing was being able to move Grim over and shoot, because now he was in melee. So I kind of gave him a +4 defense there by accident.
Oh yeah.
And, so then I started getting a little thrown off. I ended up charging my Sea King in, and charged the Blight Archon in order to be able to hit the Blight Archon and one of the Scythians. And then Mechano Shredder would have been in range as well. And so the error I made there is I should have charged the Scythian. Again, I just wasn't quite thinking, I guess. And I still could have got the Blight Archon within the 2-inch reach because I ended up rolling and would have done a critical hit, which would have knocked down the Scythian. And then I could just drop a boat anchor a few times at dice +3 or so and probably kill it pretty easily. Instead, I hit the Blight Archon. It can't be knocked down. Oh yeah, it's an Archon, duh. And then he transfers it to the Mechano Shredder. I then do the rest of my attacks buying onto the Scythian, needing 6s to hit. So I've got 5 attacks. No, with the charge, 4 attacks to do on this Scythian with 6s to hit, right? I missed 2 of them. So I leave it on 9 boxes, right? Whoops. So Blight Archon's there. I just do some other work, charge in. I don't take any chosen out. And the rest of the turn, I just kind of shuffle around for the most part. I can't really do anything. So it goes over to his turn. Again, I score 1. He scores 1. He pretty much, smartly so, I should have ran my stone unit further up in order to protect my Sea King better. So he uses his chosen, clears out some scouts, clears out enough of my stone to shrink the aura. So now the Sea King's not in the aura anymore. Blight Archon, one chosen, and a Scythian go in on it and kill it. Whereas if he was in the aura, it would have survived and taken the second heavy to kill it. And then with Overrun and some other tricks, he gets Golab over onto my caster, doing some damage. And then the Scythian charges in and he rolls like a 16 to hit and then like another 12 on damage at straight dice. So, and again, foolishly, I didn't have any transfers because I filled up my Axer. Again, wasn't thinking. So what was really neat about that, I guess, so anyway, I lose and my caster dies, top of 3, 3-2 on the CP. But what was really neat is he did a video because I couldn't really do some of the rest of the game. And so he was able to record some of the video and I was able to like watch his turn. So it was really neat what he did. He played really clean. Maybe not the best list to drop in it, but it was a good test. It was a lot of good learning for Callus 2 and all those tricks. So that was my reintroduction and my depression of like, oh yeah, it's hard to play online, and I really need to remember how to play, especially against a decent player. So yeah, and then next up, game 2, I get our fun local. We've had a friend of the cast there, Aaron Allen. So so we'll see how that one goes. But
he's not a bad player.
Exactly.
I miss being able to stomp Aaron Allen.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. But anyway, that's my game. So really excited.
Nice. Chad, you get any games in since we last recorded?
Only Commander. I haven't gotten to play any other games, unfortunately, but with the stuff that we're recently talking about things has gotten me excited to play War Machine again. And then the announcement, the totally not a keynote announcement last Friday that we're going to be going over today also got me excited about getting back to playing some War Machine, hopefully soon.
Nice. I got 2 minis games in since the last time we chatted. I got a game in of Flames of War, and that was pretty exciting. Geeks and Games is having games in person. And so I was able to meet up with one of the old timers who's around, and we put 100 points on the table. I didn't have enough models on my side, and so historical gamers, they're funny, you know. Normally what they'll do is they'll collect both sides of the battle. That, you know, when you do historical gaming, it's not like you play this faction kind of thing. It's like you play this battle, so you have army, you know, stuff for both sides. And so he loaned me some stuff, and it was exciting and challenging in a lot of different ways. It felt a lot like 40K in terms of the way that your turn is played out, but there are a lot of just weird variables. And for example, both of us had a unit that allowed us to change our deployment area by a certain number of inches, depending on where you deployed that particular unit. And so what you ended up getting is this, instead of a straight line across the board, you end up getting this like weird, like lopsided bubble, you know, and it just looks kind of funny. So, but anyway, I had an elite unit kind of in the middle of the board who I was going to use to advance on my objective. And he decided that he would kind of double flank him. Essentially, he had units targeting on both sides of it, shooting into the building. And because he was shooting into the building, it made it a little more challenging to get at my unit. And so I was able to just kind of withstand. So my guys never died, and so that was pretty exciting. But the store was closing, so we didn't get to finish. There's a lot of teaching going on, and so because it was my first like full game of Flames of War, but I very much liked it. So and out of it, I came away with a shopping list of a few things that I need to add to my force to be able to adequately play. But right now, I only have the German side, and that's because Matt, one of our locals, has a Soviet side. So, we kind of did a trade last year, and so he kept the Ally side, which put me on the Axis side. But that doesn't matter. Eventually, I'll get Americans or Canadians or both or something. I don't know. I'll figure something out. But because that's how historical gamers do it, right? And then second game I got was actually incidentally a Warhammer 40K game. So I got to play some Blood Angels versus Space Wolves. One of our locals, Michael, he had both forces painted up, and so it was my first time playing a full game with Space Marines because I've been running Astra Militarum. That has been my previous force, and so I really, really like Space Marines. It's just so much fun, just feeling like this elite force. I had 2 units with jetpacks, like huge movement, and I just, and some of the Blood Angels tactics were really fun. So, anyway, I'm gonna, that just encourages me to keep working on my Space Marines that I have. So yeah, but we didn't get a chance, and again, we didn't get a chance to finish that game. There's family stuff that came up. So, and I was stupid, and I was smoking a brisket that day, and I had a fire I needed to tend to. So, 40K
no.
Meat.
Yeah, well, the meat's important, and it wasn't my best brisket, so I regret double booking myself that day. But anyway, hey, so Chad, you already alluded to the topic, one of the topics of the day, and that first topic is that we're going to talk about is the email that came out last week. The what is it? Not a keynote.
This is not a keynote.
This is not a keynote, and there's so much good stuff in there. So why don't one of you get us started on the topic?
Well, I mean, to start, I guess it was let's just say it was released June 4th, so that was last Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they kind of drop it on a weekend or right before a weekend, and then say, "All right, have fun with this one." So, a lot to pontificate upon here. I mean, right out the gate, it tells you not to read it, right? There's spoiler alerts. You just think and wait for anticipation. So, I mean, I jokingly said I would take up that side of the discussion today of just waiting for anticipation, but I ended up reading it anyway. There's a lot of kind of cool things in there. I think they covered all their game systems, right? Talking about what's going on and what to look forward to.
Yeah.
The first one across there is about difficulties going through this year and everything, but that they're still here and they're still working on things, and there's a lot to look forward to. But you have like Riot Quest just finished up the Kickstarter. They're going to be releasing coming this winter. Yeah. And they basically just kind of had to talk about that. They have their seasons. They still have a lot of things going on. There's the story mode coming, which is going to be a narrative component of the game. And then
So hold on, you're just like going too fast for me here.
Oh yeah.
So story mode, Riot Quest sounds interesting to me.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's already wacky and weird, so I'm not really sure how you're going to add a story to it, but give them a chance for a narrative component. So
I mean, they can. The thing is that they could just write. I mean, they can't just write a storyline to go a series of different scenarios and things like that, and then just give you a structure for getting experience, or maybe tell you like you find certain loot at certain times.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely opened up to that. There's tons of loot in the game right now and lots of characters, so
Yeah.
the options are open. Just like what they said here is, imagine Boomhowler has a love interest in the story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't imagine that.
It's,
But that would
it's
make an
not-
intriguing story.
It's Boomhowler as the love interest.
oh, sorry, as the love interest, not has one. Yeah, see, I read too quick.
Oh,
Not as the love interest, but it as the love interest. So who loves Boomhowler? You know, I
yeah.
love Boomhowler. I'm just saying. But
Dan, are you a character? Are you an upcoming character in Riot Quest?
surprise! No, that's one character you don't want to see. So
Yeah.
it's exciting. I mean, it's already been a little bit of crazy characters. So what else can they pile on
Right.
top of that?
Yeah. The next product that they announced was for Monster Apocalypse here. It looks like there's going to be a new faction.
2 new factions that are like Aztec themed.
Got to keep them coming.
Oh, they're both Aztec themed?
Yes.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah. A pair of new factions inspired by ancient Aztec mythology and designed by one of the most prominent members of the Monpok community, Emmanuel Class, who has been on a couple of different podcasts. He's currently one of the hosts of Field of Fire.
That's right. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's neat to see them doing collabs like that and trying to reach out beyond, and get some different ideas.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, isn't there some really big monster movies coming out next year?
is there? You're the monster movie guy.
Yeah,
I don't
trying to
know.
remember. I don't know. I've kind of fallen off the whole movie thing because everyone is changing their release schedules.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I don't know. All I know is John Wick is next summer. So
Okay. Is Black Widow finally out? I don't even know.
so, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But if some really cool, monster movies are being released, then Monster Apocalypse can really ride that train.
Definitely. I mean, they show a couple images on there too of some concept art.
Yeah, concept art of both of the monsters, which both look really cool. One of them's like a big bat creature. Another one is kind of a swamp thing.
With like
but
fish guards.
No, so they're kind of fish design or like something like that. I really like that model because I play Circle, so it kind of reminds me of like a swampy Wold Warden.
Oh, yeah.
With like intricate designed cut stones and things like that as part of the skeleton for the creature. So
yeah, definitely pretty neat.
Also attached to the announcement about Monster Apocalypse is that they are doing a 5e compatible source book for Monster Apocalypse called the Monster Paco Neo-Mechan.
Well, we know, RPG players, we love our monster books.
Yeah. As long as there's a boomstick in there, we're good.
I'd play 5e just to have those monsters in there,
Yeah.
How are you going to go against something? But I mean, I guess there's dragons, but how are you going to?
Yeah.
Well, I wonder if the idea is that you're going to be playing the kaiju, fighting against other kaiju.
Okay. What if?
Okay, like a playable
knows?
race. That would be fun. You can't just start out at like level 13 or something. Like you could.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what they do with that one too. Yeah, I don't know. Are you going to play one of the little people and they're just running around, or do you play a giant monster and fight other monsters, or take over towns and have you tribute? I don't know.
Could be interesting. I could see a system for both where like you're the defenders and you're organizing all of your troops, and maybe there's a monster that is controlled not by you, and you're trying to defend the city against an invasion. Yeah. Or I could see you taking the role of a kaiju and fighting against another kaiju.
Yeah. And then don't forget they're talking about the Megaton Mashup 2 King of the Monster Apocalypse, or Megaton Mashup 2 King of Cons, or Megaton Mashup 2 Electric Buffalo.
Yeah.
So,
name in the works.
yep, exactly.
So after Monpok, we go into Warcaster. They gave us some previews of some stuff that's going to be coming up in the next Kickstarter, which is going to be happening soon, they said. We see a couple of wildcard characters that look pretty interesting. One character we've seen before in the Quartermaster. So if you follow their Kickstarters, the Quartermaster is the person in the gun cage with all the cool gear and everything. And I really hope that model works for Marcher Worlds, because it's going to be a shame just to buy it just as a cool miniature, because it is a sweet looking miniature, or at least the concept art for it.
I think both of them I'm going to want, because both of them look like they can play in some of the minis agnostic games that I have. Like these models would be perfect for those.
Yeah.
Like these are good models.
Which reminds me, I wanted to talk to you about Stargrave at some point, because that just came out.
Let's be friends. We'll do that.
There's also a really cool Ranger Rider, which is like a Ranger. Looks like he's got some sort of a sniper rifle riding on, basically, as it's been named by our community, a lizard space tauntaun, or a desert tauntaun, which is kind of what it looks like, and I totally dig it. There's some sort of a flying Empyrean model.
Hold on. Before you get there, the Ranger Outrider. What I really like about this is so I'm, Privateer Press fanboy, right? And other companies have been making mounted models in like their various settings that are like this. And so where you have like, a decked out Ranger type person riding, a two-legged, whatever. And like, for example, Wild Exodus has Teddy Roosevelt riding a dinosaur, which is like awesome. And so, so I'm really, really excited that Privateer Press has one now. And this model looks really cool.
Yeah.
So sorry, there's like, I'm just noticing a theme across a lot of the different companies, and so I'm really cool. I'm really excited this is introduced into the game.
Yeah. So some sort of a flying, it looks like two different models for Empyreans. It's like a flying model. There's the Regulator Reeve, which looks like another one of the heavily armored, suited ISA models, kind of like the Siegebreaker. So this may be a second version of those ones. And then it looks like the Necosphinx, which is another mechanical beast type creature, I believe, for the Artanis Continuum, kind of like the Raker. So there's no like rules or anything like that. The other thing that they mentioned is talking about the introduction of cadres. So maybe there's going to be some cross faction cooperation, or something similar to that, or the cadres might also be kind of their version of theme forces, where you get certain benefits for taking certain groups of models and that type of thing. But that information is going to be happening or coming out in the next Kickstarter once they do, or that they do for Warcaster, which is, I think, coming up this fall.
I really like how Warcaster is developing. It's turning into, like, this game looks fun. The more and more I see stuff coming out, like I got my stuff half built, but like I haven't really put it on the table, so I can't really speak to any experience about it. I've witnessed games being played. I've watched games played, but
soon we will. I want to comment though that as an ISA player, I feel a little bummed that I get the "get off my lawn" old guy. That's just the way it screams to me. He has his fist up, he has his hand back, he's kind of looking. He's just like, "Get off my planet," sort of crotchety look. And then, like I said, Artinius gets a cool like mix between like alien head and like tiger body looking thing. Get space tauntaun.
If you wanted, you could take the sword out of his hand and put in a broom or something, and really, really go at it.
Oh, great! Now you're gonna have to
I'm
make
just
me.
gonna I'm just gonna say you shouldn't have joined the space fascists then.
Hey, you know what? This is being recorded. I'm gonna report this up the chain. You're gonna get a knock from the ISA police.
You know what? We didn't talk about
me.
The three of us didn't really plan out our Warcaster purchases because Dan and
Not
I
at all.
both did ISA.
Yeah.
Like one of us should have done the other one, one of the other factions.
There's still time. Don't worry.
I mean, I did do a different faction. I did the best faction. I did Marcher Worlds.
Well, I know. I was just talking about how we have only two between the three of us. Only two factions are represented, and
yeah, but I don't think either one of you guys would have been interested in AC.
No, not AC, but if Space Convergence would have come out in the original package, I probably would have gone in Space Convergence. But yeah, they didn't. So I'm still holding out of some other factions, but
those are the Imperions for those who may not pick up.
Yes.
All right, so Jeremiah, you want to talk about the next section, the next announcement section?
The next announcement was Iron Kingdom's Requiem.
Mm-hmm.
I did not read this one up, so no, I can't talk about
it. There's not a whole ton of information about it, mostly because we're still waiting on the release of the books. I heard rumor that it's supposed to be a Warfare weekend, which that's actually going to be after, because I think Warfare weekend is the very beginning of November, and I think IKRPG Kickstarter stuff goes out in September. But what this is talking about is just kind of more, just a little bit of just talking about the announcement of the relaunching for 5e core rules, and then the next wave of books is going to be delving into the Wild Places, Mist-Shrouded Ios, which has been changed and transformed by the claiming, and then they'll also be introducing the Shaman and Warlock character classes, as long as several non-human races, and of course war beasts. So those are going to be kind of the more wild sides of things, where we'll be able to play warlocks, and then the shamans, which also kind of go along with that.
This is the horde side of it, which is kind of, I mean, they already had a couple of hordesy type things, right? But they're going a little bit more in there to
they did have some war beasts in the form of monsters, so like the satyrs and some other things like that were already in the Monsternomicon, but there probably wasn't any rules for taming those things as actual war beasts. And then the other thing they mentioned is they're going to be doing a bunch of digital supplements starting this summer, from subclasses and new adventures, be exploring all sorts of the Iron Kingdoms. And then later next year, they're going to a very dark place, the Nightmare Empire itself. So we will start actually getting some Crixian action as we go towards the Shard Isles and the rest of the Nightmare Empire.
Yeah, I mean, having not even played a game of it yet, it's still exciting to see that they're already going to add on to it. That I'm sure there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of hype too around it. I know there's quite a few people in our Discord that are talking about it. At least one or two people, I believe, are going to want to run something. One of our guys has already created several characters, right, and already modding up some models. So that's really cool. Yeah. I mean, I haven't dove into the books too much. I mean, I got the digital copies already, right? But I just haven't spent the time delving through them, as there's trolls already available. So I'm happy enough. And so it's really neat to, just like I said, see how further they're going and that they're actually thinking about expanding already upon it. So hopefully a little bit more narratives as well, like, pre-done storylines, campaigns like the Witchfire. It'll be nice to see.
So the next section talks about one of our primary games, War Machine and Hordes, and some announcements for that.
What?
The first one is the two colossals coming out for Infernals, which are the Harvester of Souls and the Guardian of Souls. These creatures were introduced during the Twitter storm last year of the Henchhold Scrolls that everyone or a lot of people were following. The Privateer Press was doing what was it called? Micro storytelling through Twitter updates, Twitter postings that they were doing. They started out as a couple of posts once a day, and then by the end of it, they were doing larger chunks of story development, these micro narratives as the claiming was going on and what was happening all over the Iron Kingdoms and how the different factions were responding to it. So we got a hint about this model, and the other thing is when we first saw the image for Iron Kingdom's Requiem, we saw allegedly one of these in the background fighting the storm wall behind the city, or frozen in time. We couldn't quite tell; they didn't quite clarify. But it's exciting. It's exciting to see 3D renders of both of these models. I think those are supposed to be becoming available in July. It looks like available to order in July, get to you in August. So we'll probably start seeing. I don't know if it'll go through a CID or if they just have rules set for it. The other exciting thing is they're celebrating the 15-year anniversary of Hordes, which started in around 2006, 2005. When they did the 0 level Warcasters for War Machine. Now they are doing the 0 level Warlocks for Hordes, which is also exciting to see the characters that they chose, especially because of the way that they develop later. We saw some concept sketches for all of them. The characters are Thagrosh Hellborn, which is Thagrosh when he was still an ogre. This is shortly after he found the Anthic of Everblight and was driven to implant it into himself and begin his transformation into a more draconic form. We see Barnabas the Conqueror, so when he was a warlord before he became, a full-fledged warlock, and then later a deity as he rose to godhood during the narrative time. We see Kruger the Stormseer, which is really awesome to see Kruger get reincarnated, his early days will be really interesting to see what his rules are. Madrak Ironhide, champion of the Creels. So we have, of course, Madrak before he picked up Rathrock and started the events that would lead to the end of the world. And then I think lastly we have Makeda when she was still just a member or the leader of House Balash. Someone will correct me.
I hope
so. Those will be coming out
huge.
soon. It certainly looks like it.
It
definitely looks like a very big two-handed sword. So,
well, the sword's as tall as the model. So yeah.
In the art,
crazy.
Yeah,
I'd get 2 of her just so I can use that sword on someone else.
Yeah. So this is exciting. It's nice to see the zeros to be able to use here and there.
Yeah.
Not really sure Madrak. It's don't get me wrong, another Madrak in there, but it's always hard when it's a main kind of caster. Like there's 3 Madrak warlocks, so I'd have a 0 almost kind of limits you a little bit more since you can't have a 0 and a lock in there at the same time. Mm-hmm. So, granted,
otherwise time paradoxes.
Exactly, and the whole world explodes. So it's exciting to see that another Madrak. That's cool. Add in there a 0, which is nice, especially for trolls when our juniors haven't been the greatest, right?
Yeah.
So that's really neat. And then Barnabas is a bit of a minions player. Be nice to see, but again, we have 2 Barneys, so
yeah.
But
maybe you should just play other stuff. Oh wait,
Don't tell me how to play the game.
have you put a Madrak on the table recently? I feel like I only hear you talking about Grim.
Well, Grim, Calandra,
Okay.
Koldrama.
Yeah.
You got a few in there.
None of
the Madrak.
None of those are Madrak.
Hey. So I want options.
You could put your boy into one of those lists.
I want more shinies. So
the bigger problem for me is I actually play Kruger 2 a lot.
So you put him in your other list. See, problem solved.
What other list? Kruger 2 beats everything. I don't need a second list. I bet he won't. I can't play Kruger 0 in Dev Host, okay? And that's the other Theme Force that I have to play. I don't know. Maybe he'll slot in. Maybe he'll be an interesting component slot in for Secret Masters. We'll see.
Let the salt go. So, no, I mean, again, it's nice to see some of these new models and just get more options out there is really neat. So curious on what the rules will be, which I guess maybe we'll have to wait to the actual keynote to find out some more.
Yeah. Or once they hit a CID rotation, which they probably will here shortly.
Yeah. Speaking of actual keynote.
So the coolest thing ever in our game is when they announce a new faction.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
And they almost didn't tell us what it was in this article. They mention it when they're talking about the future of War Machine and Hordes, but then they don't say anything. And then you have to scroll all the way to the bottom, past seeing Matt Wilson sitting in his chair, all the way down to the bottom. And then you see that they announce Orgoth, finally.
No drum roll, he just drops it. Yep.
Yeah.
So,
and people have been talking about Orgoth being the next faction for a long time, ever since they announced, like, oh, there's another faction coming. Is it going to be Orgoth? No, it's Grimcan. Is it going to be Orgoth? No, it's Convergence. No, it's Infernals. No, it's not Zoo. It's Orgoth.
We're just not going to tell you.
Yeah.
So who are the Orgoth?
Jeremiah, I think you said you had something to share.
Oh, well, okay. So I didn't know who the Orgoth were. And, and as an Khador player, I knew there was something. And so I started flipping through the Forces of War Machine book that I have, the command book for Khador. I don't have the models anymore, but I got the book, right? And so this is my only knowledge of them until I started poking around a little bit more on the internet. But I read this. It said the earliest known fell blades were unearthed among a cache of Orgoth artifacts that lay behind the haunted city of Cardiff. Saturated with dark magic, the swords are adorned with howling faces that shift eerily at the fringes of vision and seem to come alive when wielded. The first swordsman unfortunate enough to pick up these powerful weapons descended into savage homicidal madness, spurred on by incomprehensible whispering in their minds. Even during sleep, the swordsmen heard foreign babbling that urged them to acts of bloodshed. These men lashed out with berserk abandon and doubled strength, killing anyone who crossed their path. So, of course, this is talking about the Doom Reavers, right? And the fell blades that the Doom Reavers use. And so with that picture in my mind, I was like, oh my goodness, something happened that was bad a long time ago. And these guys have got to be like the representation of evil. Like they're probably more evil than Legion, more evil than Infernals. I don't know. So that was my image that I started with as I started poking around,
Yeah. Well, so there's a couple of different things. I want to point out Line of Sight, a different podcast that talks about War Machine. They do all sorts of different articles and stuff and a lot of great stuff for the community. Posted a brief kind of lore dump for the Orgoth that talked about primarily who they were. It touches a little bit on what happened to them while they were here and humanity's rise against them. And then it kind of dips into the evilness of Orgoth and just how brutally savage and evil they were. And so I recommend definitely going out and checking out that article. I read through it, and it gave me a little bit more info from what I had already known. It's a great article. It's a pretty quick read because not a whole ton is known about the Orgoth and exactly where they came from because no one knows exactly where they came from. But definitely check it out. And then Privateer Press is going to be releasing more lore about them as we get closer and closer to their release next year. So we didn't see any other. There's very little art. There's a little bit of art. I think that is the only art that we've seen outside of the stuff related to Khador in the article that Line of Sight put up. That's got a couple of images of them. But basically, think about like the most horrible conquerors that you can think of, the most brutal to the people that they subjugate, and that's pretty much what the Orgoth were. They're kind of if the Infernal Masters were more of foot soldiers and fighters rather than the spellcasters that they are, that is kind of what the Orgoth were. They were a conquering Viking-like race that came from across the sea, and the article talks about when they expanded to Western Imran, before the Iron Kingdoms were really the Iron Kingdoms, and the early days of those kingdoms, the nations were founded because they had been for a while, but the Orgoth came and shattered all of those nations and subjugated everyone. They were the first commanding or conquering race that got actually into Ord and actually, I think, managed to subjugate the dwarves, or almost did. They got further into the dwarven lands than anyone else, and they even said, like, everything that you are is ours now. Your lives, your bodies, the sweat, the blood, the tears that you do in the everyday work for us is ours now, and even in your death, your soul will be ours as your servitude continues to serve us.
Wow.
So they are
They're mean.
pretty mean.
Yeah.
And the article even talks about they were the only force that, as they moved south towards the Shard Isles, they're the only non-draconic force that caused Turok to leave his roost and actually push them back. It's how bad these guys were. So they enslaved mankind. I don't remember exactly how long it lasted, but at some point during it, when mankind started to realize that they needed to rise up against them, this is around the time that Thamar made a deal with the Infernal Masters to give mankind magic and arcana and the knowledge of this. Did you have something again?
Yeah, I can touch upon the timeline a little bit better. So they said they invaded in 600 BR or something like that, which is kind of I guess, our, BC AD. So that would be like BC, because we take place, current events kind of, Grimkin came in about 610 AR, and we're a few years past that, right? So this would be 1200 Emerin years ago is when the invasion happened, roughly. Then, in 150 BR is Thamar's thing, and finally in what they say, like 200 AR. So 800 years of these guys being here doing this, they retreat, and now we are 400-ish years later, dealing with it. So that's kind of a little bit of the timeline on that to give some perspective.
Yeah, thank you. So Thamar made a deal with the Infernal Masters to bestow the power of magic and the ability and arcana and the ability for mankind to fight back against the Orgoth, because without it, the Orgoth were just going to continue to rule over mankind. And Thamar and Morrow didn't want that because they were their people.
Yeah, they want their followers.
Yeah. So with this knowledge is when we start seeing the first creation of warjacks in Mechanica and other things like that. And the very first colossals were created from this knowledge. And we think of colossals now as being the size that they are. They're bigger than a regular heavy warjack. They're pretty big. I think they're like see, I think a heavy warjack is 10 feet tall, 10 or 12 feet tall. I think is what a 50 millimeter is supposed to be. And the colossals are 120, so they're much, much larger than that. The original colossals that the current colossals were based off of were the size of cities. They were enormous. They were way larger than any of the modern day colossals, and they were the only thing that allowed mankind to eventually beat back the Orgoth. A lot of different factions kind of take credit for the pushing back of Orgoth. I think Khador and Signar take a lot of credit for working together, actually, and creating these monstrous colossals to fight back the Orgoth. But one of the things that is talked about in there's another podcast, I'm not sure if they're still around anymore, called Enter the Crucible. And a number of years ago, they did a couple of different lore episodes, I think 4 or 5 of them, that were like about an hour and a half or 2 hours long or something, where they delved deep into the old lore of like the creation of the world and the universe that the Iron Kingdoms takes place in. And during one of the episodes, they're talking about Circle and Trollbloods and stuff. I definitely recommend. I believe you can still find the episodes in their archives. It's Enter the Crucible.
Yeah, you
they're
can find them on News on
fantastic
Minis.
episodes. Yeah, they're fantastic episodes, and that's where I've gotten a lot of my information and my lore from. But one of the things that's a little bit lesser known, Circle Orbros is one of the oldest. Is one of the oldest orders in all of Kane's history. They've been around basically since the dawn of any man. They created a plague that was specific to the Orgoth that would only infect Orgoth, and it ravaged their ranks. They put it into food, they put it into the soldiers, and it spread through the barracks and through their entire civilization, to the point that they were forced, battling that and then also battling the Colossals, they were forced to retreat back across the cities whence they came from, where no one had ever seen them again. And after this is when the Iron Kingdom started becoming formed. The different leaders of the old nations started coming together and rationing out the lands and things like that, and that is where a lot of the current day feuds between like Khador and Lael and Signar began, and then also just the wild races, Circle and Trollbloods and the minions were kind of hashed out into the lands, and Signar kind of took an opportunity to take a little bit more than they had previously, because they kind of attributed themselves to being one of the primary reasons why they were able to develop the Colossals in the first place, and thus started a bunch of old feuds of feeling cheated about land being taken, Khador especially, because a lot of the old land that they used to have got taken away, either by Signar or given to Lael, and it caused basically a lot of the events leading into what it is that we see in the history of current War Machine.
Yep. So a lot there, a lot of depth for them to draw on for that faction for sure. Maybe to the Circle players, Circle the hero.
It was a collective effort, but we definitely weakened them more than just about anybody else.
There you go.
We made them too weak to effectively fight back against the Colossals with our play.
There you go. Yeah, the poor Khador got beat up by them. But
you may have punched them in the face, but we weakened their knees.
So, yeah, my assumption is there's going to be a lot of, draw upon those Doom Reaver swords and stuff like that, maybe, and kind of have those style guys, some skeleton warrior type people, maybe. I don't know. Undeadish, soulless type. Well, I don't know if they'll be soulless, but
yeah, I don't know if they actually really delved into black magic. Well, I think they did in the way of like soul essence and harvesting, but I don't think they did necromancy, like raising dead. I mean, again, we don't know that much about them, so this is a perfect opportunity to flush them out and do something different. A lot of people, a lot of people wonder if they're going to be a new Hordes faction. I wonder if they're going to work on a different mechanic similar to the way that the Infernals work on a separate mechanic with their essence. So I'm interested to see what they decide to do as a resource mechanic and see how things go moving forward. I think we're going to see larger models because they were talked about being like giants. And also, funny enough, Privateer Press with the development of Warcaster has introduced a new base size. We have an 80 millimeter base size, so we could start seeing some of the Orgoth armored beasts and things like that on those 80 millimeter bases if they're bigger than just heavy warjacks. Or we could even see some Orgoth things on 80 millimeter bases.
Not a keynote, right?
Yeah, totally not a keynote.
Yeah, there's drop some hints and some things in there, and then leave you to speculation. But
yeah.
I pointed out the June 4th date is, I guess, our next piece of news. We're ready to move on.
Yeah.
So
June 7th.
Yeah, well, I mean, but yeah. So there's a June 7th news about June 4th being the last day for Mr. Hungerford at Privateer Press. So, coincidentally, those kind of collided. So that's kind of a shockwave of news. Personally, I'm surprised by it. Curious on where he ends up landing, and trying to be optimistic for the future of the creativity of PP. So
yeah.
Again, where the keynote kind of, or this is not a keynote, kind of hints at, hey, we got these things in the works, so it's going to be okay, guys. It's going to be okay.
Yeah. I know that in the post that Will Hungerford put up today, talking about his leaving Privateer Press, he did get a lead developer position at a different company, but he didn't say where. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes from here. In the last handful of years, we've seen Privateer lose a number of large and old faces that have been with the company for 10 years or almost 10 years. But it's always really sad to see those types of things happen, especially people who are so connected to the community. Will Schick, Will Hungerford, Will Schoonover, Will Pagani, all of the Wills. All of the Wills are gone. And even some other ones like Dallas Kemp, who was the studio artist for a long time, also has left. But where a lot of those people had other people that worked with them, people who were newer to the company that maybe had been there for 4, 5, 6 years and are now getting the opportunity after being mentored by these people that have been such a key part of the company and the community for so long, are now stepping up and taking their place. Like, I would not be surprised if we didn't see Faye getting. I think Faye had been moved to lead development for Monster Apocalypse after Oz left. I wouldn't be surprised if they were also moved to lead developer for the rest of things, because I think Will Hungerford had moved from just doing Riot Quest to actually being development for War Machine and Hordes. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. Again, they've already got a lot of things kind of in the pipeline for us coming up over probably the next year and a half. It'll probably be about this time next year that Orgoth actually gets released, when we can actually do lock and load. Lock and load again next year will probably be the release of Orgoth. But while it is really sad to see these old familiar faces go, I'm interested to see the fresh new ones that replace them. I kind of ran into this weird feeling of sadness and hopefulness about 5 years ago or so, 4 or 5 years ago, when a lot of the very familiar faces in the competitive scene of War Machine started leaving the game, either due to life or loss of interest or things changing. We saw a lot of the very prominent players leaving the game and making way for other new players that are very well known, very very skilled players now, but it's always sad to see the familiar things leave. And I'm very sad to see Hungerford go. He's an incredible guy. He's done a great job doing development for the company. He's been a great member of the community. I'm sure we'll still see him in the future, but it does make me really sad to see him go.
Yep. Agreed. Well, we won't get our may not get our Croakcaster that we brainstormed on the episode so long ago. So, but yeah, best of luck, and it sounds like they left on good terms and everything. So, like I said, hopeful as well. Faye, like you said, has been stepped up and is doing some stuff. So we'll see who else they bring in. On to Hobby Desk.
Yeah, I think so. I had talked about before I was going to be starting to work on a very large dragon. I have not started working on that yet, unfortunately. I'm waiting on some spare pieces from the same person who printed the model. They were going to give me some spare parts so I could try a couple of different things out without putting them to finish on this very large model, and then have it not look good, and then have to try and strip a very, very large model. So right now I've got some Dark Angel stuff, or I guess Fallen, either one, on my desk that is going to get painted, but I haven't done any painting recently. I did some assembly last weekend, some Outriders, and got some green stuff done for the robes and hoods, for the all bikes Dark Angel list that I have, or that I'm almost done collecting, and then that'll be an art project to paint all that stuff up.
Nice. I got some reorganizing done, just moving stuff around again, and also playing around with the Magna rack that I had picked up, trying to figure if it's what models will work out for better, how much I can actually fit on there. And so doing that, and then I got about 24 models primed up between Riot Quest and Warcaster. So again, assembling and priming are much different than getting them painted, but at least there's something. So other than that, just chugging along.
I got a Cygor that was like missing its arms, and so I was able to find some bits, and they didn't exactly fit quite perfect, and so I had to do a little bit of green stuffing on it. And so I did that this past week, and then I also did some basing on it, and then got it primed up on Saturday. Like, there was a little bit of sun, and then like I was like, hey, I'm gonna go prime. And then as soon as I was done priming, the rain came. I was like, wow, good timing. So,
nailed it.
Yeah. So, but I was thinking about it. I'm going to be using the Cygor as sort of a proxy for a different model, for a different game. But I was thinking about looking at my stuff in terms of the Dave Ramsey method of doing the smaller projects first and get them done.
Yeah.
And then go to the next small and the next small. And so what I end up having is that feeling of success. Because what I do most of the time is I start a project, and then I get distracted with another project. Yeah. It's like how I read books. I literally have like 14 books with bookmarks in them because I start them, but I don't finish them until a long time later. And I ended up like reading them all kind of all at the same time, and eventually I'll finish them, and then eventually, right? Yeah. So I realized I have to have a new strategy for my hobby desk. So
there you go. Yeah, that's the one thing is, I have these grand visions of, I'm going to do this whole army like this, or I'm going to do this. And then you're like, oh, this is taking me 2 years to finally complete. So maybe I should have just done the smaller projects to feel better and moving on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been at this long enough. I should have more completed projects. That's just the truth.
Well, you got to smoke that brisket sometime.
Yeah, I know. But anyway,
I'm waiting for the day of barbecue machine again. So
yeah. So today, I have mixed feelings about today. I was all excited on Friday.
Yep.
And like all I could think about all weekend was War Machine and getting games in and things like that. And then Oz was telling me how he's looking forward to the Orgoth. So it sounds like we're gonna get that for him. And then like this morning I see that news and I'm just like as high as I was on Friday.
All the wind.
Yeah, I'm on the other side. So this is kind of a weird episode for me. Like my emotion is all weird. So, but regarding us, our community, regardless of what game we're playing, we like to talk about games. And so I want to encourage everyone to join our Discord server. We've got a couple new listeners join the past couple of days, and that's exciting. Welcome aboard. We have our paint party every Thursday, and that's something that I enjoy very much. And then we have our monthly book club. And so this month, I think we're reading the rules for Mophidius's Conan RPG.
Yeah.
So if you have that, cool. You can also get the PDF for it at drivethrurpg.com, which is where I'll be getting it. I haven't gotten it yet. So I'm going to be late to the party reading that, I think. But we have a community. So
it's only June.
We got plenty of time.
It's only
got
June,
3 weeks or 4 weeks.
Yeah. The way you read things would be good.
Yeah. Find us at spellstormminiatures.com. There's links to all the things. You can support us by giving us positive reviews if you like what we do. You can support us monetarily by using any number of our affiliate links that are on our website and in our show notes. And then, of course, you can also give directly through Patreon or Ko-fi. But with that, everyone, enjoy your games.